The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Patricia, and for the next hour I'll be reading from current issues of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. Starting with the Lockport Union-Sun Journal for Thursday, July 23rd, from the front page. Council approves Bewley Building Measures by Heidi Trudeau-Light. After hearing pointed comments from local leaders about delays, the Common Council unanimously approved a resolution Wednesday to hold a public hearing and vote on rezoning the Bewley Building's parking lot on August 12th at 6 p.m. John Craig, 1st Ward Alderman, was absent. In a written statement, Carla Speranza, County Legislator for the 12th District in Lockport, described the city's process to address the rezoning as dragged out by indecision and delay, whether intended or not. The resolution brought by Catherine Fogel, 4th Ward Alderman, also authorized the city's Corporation Council to prepare a local law amending the city's code to change the zoning classification of 26 Market Street from mixed light industrial to mixed use downtown. The measure advances the process for Past Stone Development to implement its proposed renovation project of the Bewley Building into 100 affordable apartments. In order to build a fire code compliant stairwell without altering the Bewley Building's historic character, Past Stone would need to construct the stairwell on the wall facing the parking lot. To allow the stairwell, Past Stone seeks to change the parking lot zoning from mixed light industrial to mixed use downtown, which would match the Bewley Building's zoning. Former Alderman Anita Mullane read Speranza's words to the Common Council. We need safe, affordable housing. Past Stone has provided a solid and achievable plan. What else do you want for Lockport and the Bewley Building? Speranza wrote, further delay will likely result in either a subpar alternate project that puts lipstick on a pig and pads someone's wallet, or comes at a higher cost and further deterioration of the property in the interim. I implore the Council to vote in the affirmative. While questioning the need for rezoning at the microphone, former Mayor Michelle Roman supported the resolution as a step towards renovating the Bewley Building. I don't even see why this is necessary, Roman said. The zone is mixed light industrial. Residential is included. What Past Stone wants to do is allowed in the zone. Downtown doesn't need another empty building. To say there's other buyers out there for a hotel is not reality. They're not having discussions with the current owners. Continuing with the July 23rd Union-Sun Journal, other local news articles. Henning appointed president of Rotary Club of Lockport. The Rotary Club of Lockport gathered at 80 Main Banquet and Catering on July 7th to install its leadership for the 26 to 27 Rotary year. Amanda Henning is the new president and received the gavel from Vicki Smith, outgoing president. Henning is also currently interim executive director at Cornell Cooperative Extension of Niagara County and recently received the Paul Harris Award from the Lockport Rotary, which was awarded November 18, 2025. Smith serves the community in multiple roles, not only through her work with Rotary, but also as Director of Planning and Development for the City of Lockport and President/CEO of the Greater Lockport Development Corporation. The Rotary Club of Lockport was chartered on May 1, 1919, making it the oldest service organization in Lockport. Charles A. Upson was elected as the club's first president and George C. Lewis as secretary. The club began with 25 charter members and within 2 years had grown to 70 members. Rotary's mission has always been to fulfill community needs and advance world peace and understanding. Today, this is accomplished through programs and projects to support healthcare, youth development, sustainable communities, and cultural exchange at the local, regional, and international levels. A couple of items in the In Brief column. Family Child Care class offered. The Community Child Care Clearinghouse of Niagara is offering its Introduction to Family Child Care for individuals interested in becoming a registered family child care provider at the Niagara Community Action Program Office, 1521 Main Street, from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. on August 5th. For more information, please call 285-8572 or 1-800-701-4KID. Retired Teachers event coming up. Renee, Retired Educators of New York, is encouraging all retired teachers and retired school employees from Niagara County to attend an open house at Nate Meg Farm, www.southwalesbrewing.com, home of South Wales Brewing Company, featuring craft beer and farm-to-table wine. Rennie Western Zone is an organization that focuses on the needs and interests of those who work in education. It offers opportunities for travel, camaraderie, supporting those in need, and advocating for the rights of retired education professionals. Stop in for a moment or stay for a while to reminisce with colleagues who have worked with students from UPK through college. Beer and wine will be available to purchase. Additionally, non-alcoholic drinks and light refreshments will be provided by the Western Zone. Turning to the opinions page for the July 23rd Union-Sun Journal. Tom Valley from the Valley column. I was kidding, right? I took a couple of weeks off from writing this column to give my ability to concentrate a much-needed rest. Speaking of rest, did you hear about the couple from Western New York who decided this past January to escape the gloomy woes of winter and recharge themselves in the glow of sunny Florida? I was hoping you didn't. They both had jobs, but the doldrums of snowstorms and the annual disappointment of the Buffalo Bills' nice try but not today playoff elimination made the effort to get away, well, worth it. Anyhow, at the last moment, the wife found out that a work-related situation prevented her from leaving until a day after their scheduled flight. Go figure. But they agreed that he should fly as planned and she'd catch up with him the next day at the hotel. He would arrange her next day's flight. Fine. He arrived in Fort Myers and checked into the beautiful Lanai Kai Hotel Resort and couldn't believe what a great place they'd booked and how warm the weather was. Before unpacking, he sent a promised email to his wife letting her know he had arrived safely and made arrangements with the airline for her flight out of Buffalo the next morning. Unfortunately, while typing in her address, he mistakenly hit a wrong number and it went to an unsuspecting elderly widow, a widow who had just lost her preacher husband the day before. Upon reading the message, the older woman screamed and dropped dead on the spot. Gone, hasta luego, sayonara, cooked, here's your hat, what's your hurry? Get out, gone, deader than a doornail, widow. Get the picture? Her family rushed in. Upon checking the message she just received, they were astonished to read, Dear wife, I just checked in and I've got it all set up for your arrival tomorrow. Your loving husband. P.S. It sure is hot down here. Thank you. Please be seated. I saw that joke online and I had to share it with you after I doctored it up with some home-cooked twists and turns. Coming up with something is completely original on my own right out of the gate after a 2-week layoff is a little too much for me. But that's how I row these days. For instance, when I get up in the morning, I'm so stiff and sore I have to stretch and exercise just to gain a sense of mobility. Attempting any physicality beforehand is futile. The irony is that by the time I'm loose enough to do anything, it's nap time. I've exhausted from the workout. Speaking of being tired and stuff, it was 3 o'clock in the morning about a month ago. My wife and daughter were away for a couple days to visit my grandson when I heard my neighbor banging on our garage door. I couldn't believe it. Who comes knocking on your door in the middle of the night, eh? Talk about inconsiderate. Luckily, I was awake. In fact, I was right there in the garage playing my drum set. Hey, want to hear I'm a Gata Davida in D minor? Is that okay? Far out. I'm kidding, right? Yesterday, I went golfing with my two brothers. I was at our place on the river near our hometown of Oxenberg. Kathy was due to arrive from her trip the next day. My brother Tim picked me up, and we took the half-hour drive to the golf course where we met up with Mike. We had our usual great time, lots of laughs. After a Gatorade or two, Tim drove me home. As usual, I was quite fatigued after the long day. I got to the bottom of the hill/stairs where the camp is and suddenly realized my phone was missing. I looked all over, couldn't find it. I took 2 trips up the hill, 60-plus steps in desperate search, nut and honey. Nowhere to be seen. I had no choice but to take the drive to town to see if I'd dropped it in Tim's car somewhere. I knew I had it on the way home. True story, I ain't kidding. Sure as crap, there's where it was. I was relieved. Tim said, "You didn't have to drive all the way here. You could have just called me. I would have looked for you." He didn't realize what he said. I laughed and said, "And how could I have done that?" And he grinned sheepishly and shot back, "Oh, yeah, well, you could have at least texted." He was kidding, right? Finally, back on the river where I'm enjoying the summer. I don't know what's worse, the smoke coming out of Canada or the hot air coming out of Washington, but citizen penalties are being threatened on both sides. Tariffs are proposed for the smoke perpetrators, while the hot air perpetrator continues to be exhaustingly taxing on our side of the border. I was kidding, right? Subtle enough, Larry and Bob, LOL. Anyhow, that's how it looks from the river valley. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Turning to the Lockport Union-Sun Journal for Saturday and Sunday, July 25th through the 26th. From the front page, A Parking Lot Disaster by Heidi Truzel-Light. An Elmwood Avenue resident told the Common Council on Wednesday about the disaster he lives with as a neighbor of the neglected and mismanaged city parking lot that the city has promised to convert into a park. In describing the problem and questioning the use of funds for the city's stalled park plans, Roger Peace offered to work on the park committee. Without taking accountability for the neglect or answering questions, Mayor John Lombardi III responded that Peace was immediately on the committee. Peace had calmly told the council, "We look out every day and we just see this parking lot as an absolute disaster. The city has allowed trash from fireworks, discarded drinks, and plastic to accumulate and weeds to reach 4 feet for a second year. City workers sprayed the pavements this month without advance notice to neighbors or posting a spray warning. I went over and talked to the man, and they were spraying the weeds," Peace said. "Someone is spraying chemicals all over the parking lot. Young children walk through the parking lot on a regular basis, along with adults with their animals. We really don't appreciate that the city would use chemicals instead of, in the past, they've always come through and weed whacked the area down." Peace said the neighbors were left wondering what kind of chemicals were used and how long they needed to avoid the area. He said the spraying presented additional hazards. "That seems to be a favorite place for people to set off fireworks," Peace said. "And if you kill all those weeds, you're going to have dry weeds all over the entire parking lot. Now you're going to have a chance of having a brush fire. How are you going to rectify this area that's really been contaminated with all kinds of chemicals?" John Wiley, 5th Ward Alderman, had presented his constituents' concerns about spray exposure to Lombardi During a work session last week, visibly frustrated, Wiley said the residents were held accountable by code enforcement for mowing their lots while the city's allowed eyesores to go unaddressed. When you go around Lockport, do you really drive your city? Wiley asked Lombardi. It looks like expletive, point blank. When asked last week by the Union-Sun Journal if maintaining the Elmwood parking lot was a secondary matter for the city, Lombardi replied, no, it's city's property and we maintain it. This week, the weeds and trash remained, along with the plastic tarp that was photographed on the pavement between the weeds last September. Last year, the Aaron Amazel Park Planning Committee hired a landscape architect, completed a site layout diagram, and submitted it to the state. However, neither committee chairman, Alan Jacker, nor Vicki Smith, President and CEO of the Greater Lockport Development Corporation, GLDC, which owns the property, could provide a working cost estimate for the project when asked in March. In February, Jack told residents at a park forum organized by John Craig, First Ward Alderman, that Smith was writing grant applications to secure additional funding. When asked what project costs were being included in those proposals and the required budget breakdowns, Smith said in an email, "We do not have a figure at this point." Mike Marino, CEO of Nussbaumer and Clark Engineers and Surveyors, who has worked on grant proposals for Aaron Mosel Park, said he believes the current vision of the park with landscaped boundaries, a basketball court, sprinkler pool, and walking paths would be a multi-million-dollar project. In the spring, Marino said that removing the asphalt at the park site could not begin for another year because there is no biddable set of plans and a contract would have to be put in place. Peace told the council that he and his wife had participated in last year's walkthrough of the parking lot organized by the committee, and he understood the project had received a grant. What has been done with the $450,000 over the last 9 years, and how much money is actually left that the city can start doing something with instead of just leaving it, he asked. As I talked to my neighbors, anything's better than what we're looking at over there. I don't know how many people in that committee are actually living right there. You just talk it to death. So my wife and I would volunteer to be on something like that and try to help and push this thing along and at least give the ideas of the neighbors. If you don't live there, it's not a very big concern. Flipping the roles of service provider and taxpayer, Lombardi eagerly said, "Mr. Pease, would you please make an appointment and come down and see me? I want to explain the money to you in detail." Continuing with the Lockport Union-Sun Journal for July 25th to the 26th, from the front page. 4 Civil War soldiers memorialized at ceremony by Heidi Truzel Light. 4 Civil War soldiers were posthumously honored by those grateful for their service on Friday at the unveiling of a historic marker at Mount Calvary Cemetery on Summit Street. At their grave sites, local dignitaries, armed services representatives, Boy Scouts, and a bagpiper recognized the 4 men who served in the Union Army between 1861 and 1865. One of the soldiers, born in Ireland, lost his legs in the line of duty. Hugh Gleason was drafted into the 140th New York Infantry at Wilson in 1863 after coming to this country as a youngster, said Cookie Butcher, who organized the event. Gleason was imprisoned at Salisbury, North Carolina, where he suffered gangrene, resulting in the amputations of parts of both legs, yet he survived until 1887. Michael Slattery, born in Ireland, enlisted in the 105th New York Infantry at Lockport in 1861. He transferred to the Ambulance Corps of the 94th New York Infantry in 1863. Butcher said Slattery was wounded in 1864 near Petersburg, Virginia, and was discharged in 1865 for disability. Michael Owens voluntarily enlisted in the 36th New York Infantry at Buffalo in 1861 and in the 2nd New York Mounted Rifles of Lockport in 1863. He was twice promoted to corporal. Owens died in his 20s, the same year he was discharged. James Morris enlisted in the 105th New York Infantry at Lockport in 1861, attaining the rank of private. He was discharged for disability and old age in 1862. Speaking to those assembled, Butcher said, "I believe every person deserves to be remembered with dignity, and no one should be forgotten simply because time has passed. These men answered their country's call, and they deserve our respect and our gratitude. Their graves, along with all those who rest here, remind us that this cemetery is not just an old piece of land, it is a part of our history. Remembering them in one small way, we can honor their service and ensure that future generations remember the sacrifices they made. May this marker stand as a reminder that they, the 4 Civil War veterans, and all who are buried here, will not be forgotten." Butcher and Aldrich donated the sign that features the soldiers' names. Claudia Tenney's office provided a flag that flew over the Capitol for the occasion. Boy Scout Troop 40 and the Marine Corps League Devil Dog Detachment presented the flags. Catherine Fogel, 4th Ward Alderman, said Butcher and David Darlow, a former Marine, have worked tirelessly to maintain the cemetery. Cookie started using a push mower, Fogel said. Over time, trees have been trimmed. This has been a labor of love for a long time. Turning to the Lockport Union-Sun Journal for Tuesday, July 28th, from the front page. Future destination sites found on Brownfield's tour by Heidi Truzel-Light. Gems were found among the buildings on the county's Brownfields walking tour last week along Market Spring and Chestnut Streets. 2 future destination sites that grabbed walkers' attentions included the building occupied by Art 247 at 247 Market Street and the New York Central train station at Union Street. More than 20 people participated in the tour of underused properties and brownfields, defined as sites where redevelopment is complicated by contamination or perceived contamination. The tour was part of a $1.5 million U.S. Environmental Protection Agency grant project by the Niagara County Brownfields Coalition for Lockport, Niagara Falls, and North Tonawanda. For Lockport, the grant includes Census Tract 236 surrounding West Avenue from Outwater Park to Summit Street and Tract 237 downtown. Participants discussed the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and barriers to development for properties on the route. This area is selected because it moves from the downtown core to historic buildings along the canal to industrial buildings that touch residential areas, said Joy Kubler, organizer of the tour. This place is a diamond in the rough, said resident Joe DiPasquale, a film director of the canal area building at 247 Market Street. I was lucky enough to get a tour of it. There is a cavernous room in there that, when I walked in, reminded me of a Hollywood soundstage. Tim Clark of the Buffalo Film Office is looking for more studio space and opportunities in Niagara County. It's about sound stages and finding space to build. Local film shooting has just gone wild in the last 20 years. It was very much a visioning and ideas session, Carla Speranza, Niagara County's legislator representing the 12th District in Lockport, said of the walk. There was a very diverse group of people with different talents, professions, passions, and ages. It was an interactive brainstorming session. There was a civil engineer who was walking with us and taking copious notes on his tablet, capturing people's impressions and ideas. The goal is to bring some concrete ideas on 2 or 3 sites that might be the most practical. Speranza said she was supportive of efforts underway to resurrect the unique architecture of the burned New York Central train station at Union Street. Owner Mark Davidson and Lockport native Brian McDonough, who restores historic buildings, spoke to tour participants about their plans for the train station and surrounding land. "I'm absolutely for that," Speranza said of the project. "These people are investing their time and creativity into bringing back and recognizing the significance of it in the history of Lockport. When Vanderbilt built the Union Station in Lockport, he built it as a gem. He wanted it to be a state-of-the-art and opulent experience, so much that the windows were Tiffany windows. That was the care and statement that the Union Station made. It signaled a big leap forward in the prosperity of Lockport. In the future, it would become a destination." With trains still running the nearby tracks, Speranza said Davidson spoke about making the site a workable station connecting trains to Rochester. People could disembark in town and enjoy what's there, or get on their bicycles and ride along the canal. That project in particular is something that has already had shovels in the ground, so to speak. They need more funding and continuous support from the community to help this along. Longtime city residents remember the train station before the fire that devastated it in 1974. Speranza said and hopes to see it restored. "People have been wanting it," she said of the project. "Those of us who grew up here and into the 70s when it was a restaurant, it's such an unusual and striking architecture. Even if you don't have a personal memory of that time, you have a visceral reaction to the building. People recognize that this place really had to be something back in the day. This is the kind of thing that we can kind of put the spurs to. Planning is underway for a brownfield walking tour for the west end of the city before fall," Kubler said. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Turning to the Union-Sun Journal for Thursday, July 30th. From the front page, Keenan Center gets NYPA funding. The NYPA board also approved more than $5.2 million in Western New York Power proceeds funding Tuesday for 4 firms, including the Riviera Theater in North Tonawanda and the Keenan Center in Lockport. The Keenan Center was awarded $1,623,644 in NYPA funding to support the development of the more than $17 million Keenan Civic Arena, a modern, fully accessible, multi-use event venue that will address a major gap in large-scale event infrastructure in eastern Niagara County. Located on the center's 25-acre historic campus in Lockport, the project includes infrastructure and accessibility upgrades, improved site functionality, and significant campus green space restoration. The new arena is expected to operate more than 340 days annually, hosting events such as concerts, festivals, conventions, trade shows, conferences, and sports tournaments. The Riviera Theater and Organ Preservation Society was awarded $350,000 in NYPA funding to support a more than $1.6 million backstage expansion at the historic 1,100-seat Riviera Theater. The nonprofit venue attracts more than 100,000 visitors annually and serves as a cornerstone of the Erie Canal Corridor's downtown revitalization. The project includes the addition of modern production support spaces and key infrastructure upgrades. As a result, the theater will be able to accommodate larger touring productions and a wider range of performances. With expanded capacity, it anticipates adding 10 to 20 shows each year, attracting an estimated 7,000 to 14,000 additional visitors. Outside of Niagara County, the Buffalo and Erie County Botanical Gardens Society was awarded $2,904,688 in MYPA funding to support ongoing upgrades at the Buffalo and Erie County Botanical Gardens. The nonprofit organization manages the 11.4-acre campus in South Buffalo that receives more than 123,000 visitors annually. The funding will build on the garden's more than $31 million expansion projects and support the modernization and enhancement of exhibits, outdoor spaces, and core infrastructure, including the installation of a rooftop solar array. Bread Hive Workers Cooperative was awarded $329,629 in NYPA funding to support the acquisition and renovation of a 10,000 square foot vacant commercial warehouse on Buffalo's west side. The worker-owned Artisan Bakery currently operates a retail cafe and a small wholesale production facility supplying breads and baked goods to restaurants, retailers, and farmer markets across Western New York. The NYPA funding awards are made possible through the Western New York Power Proceeds Fund, which is comprised of net earnings resulting from the sale of unused hydropower generated at the Power Authority's Niagara Power Project and stems from power proceeds legislation signed into law in 2012. Turning to the opinions page of the July 30th Union-Sun Journal. Our view, keeping the public informed. For the past few weeks, the news involving radiological testing and the local residents it has impacted has seemed to come nonstop. We've had a contentious public meeting, 4 families in the process of being relocated, and updates on numbers and scope of the radiological testing being handled by state and federal regulators. They've even set up a command post on Niagara University to better centralize their operations. Across the county, in Lockport and Newfane, there are many who have concerns with the ongoing work at the 18-Mile Creek Superfund site. Given this region's long history with Love Canal and other environmental contamination, it's understandable that many people are anxious. For some, every new headline raises more questions than answers. While we wait for answers, it was good to see yesterday that both the State Department of Environmental Conservation and U.S. Environmental Protection Agency are expanding their outreach efforts to worried local residents. The DEC and EPA are encouraging residents to contact agency representatives through a public hotline at 518-712-8279 from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. weekdays. Calls received outside those hours will be returned as soon as possible, the agency said. Starting today, agency representatives will also offer drop-in sessions at the community center at Veterans Memorial Community Park in the town of Niagara. Residents can ask questions and learn more about the property access and survey process. Sessions are scheduled to be held from 3 to 7 p.m. today and again on Monday and on August 10th. Additional information, including the July 20th meeting presentation, is available at on.ny.gov/NECRA. And resources including fact sheets, investigation updates, and answers to frequently asked questions will be posted online. Residents can sign up for Niagara and Erie County Radiological Assessment email updates through the webpage and here at on.ny.gov/NECRA updates. Representatives from the DEC and EPA are still conducting door-to-door outreach to request permission to access private properties for on-site radiological testing. On Monday, DEC and EPA said their agencies have received more than 300 signed access agreements, allowing teams to conduct radiological surveys and determine whether a more detailed investigation is needed. EPA, NYSDEC, and NYSDOH will continue coordinating with property owners, local officials, and community members as fieldwork progresses. Residents in the areas of interest who have not yet submitted a property access agreement can contact NECRA at dec.ny.gov or call 518-712-8279 for assistance. As for the 18 Mile Creek Superfund site, the EPA provided information tables and exhibits Wednesday at Lockport Town Hall. Today, the EPA will be available at the Town of Newfane Community Center. The gatherings will include exhibits and information on the site. 18 Mile Creek is undergoing cleanup for contamination of PCBs and heavy metals, including lead, dumped by the former Flint Coat Company in Lockport's Lower Town. Hotlines, public information sessions, and door-to-door conversations won't eliminate the contamination where it exists, but they can help eliminate something else: uncertainty. Continuing with the opinions page of the July 30th Union-Sun Journal, the Tom Valley column from the Valley. Repairing stuff with no room for error. Never has a more appropriate name than the labor camp been applied to something like it has to our modest spot on the St. Lawrence River. I've mentioned it here many times before that my wife Kathy came up with that befitting appellation years ago. The cottage is located on the outskirts of our hometown, Ogdensburg, in northern New York. More about that in a minute, but first a short digression. Note, the city of Ogdensburg has also been incorrectly called Hindenburg by a friend of mine in Medina, a friend who will remain nameless because I wouldn't want to embarrass him for his inability to pay attention and listen when I tell him time after time it's not Hindenburg, it's Ogdensburg. That's right, I'm not going to tell you who it is because even if I mentioned his first name, everyone who knows me or him would know exactly whom I'm talking about. He would be teased relentlessly by our friends, and that wouldn't be right. I'd feel bad for him. I'm more considerate than most people give me credit for. It's Bruce, by the way. Moving on. Most of the correspondence I get about this column is generated from the stories I write about our times at the river. Back when I first started, 1,000 letters used to pour in on a weekly basis whenever I chronicled our days there. But after my mother passed away, it dropped down to barely one a month. Mom was a prolific writer, and regarding that one email that still comes in on a regular basis, I don't care what Bruce says. I'm not going to just shut up and go away. But regarding those river tales, I think people in general like reading stuff they can relate to, something they can identify with. The guilt-free association is in line with the better you than me double standard of comedy, such as laughing if you see someone slip on a banana peel, but taking on a different perspective if it happens to you. Okay, that's enough of the psychology, but one more thing, just so you know. My total analysis of comedy writing, That's Not Funny, a title I figured was only natural based on the overwhelming responses I often hear, is now available on 8-track. Look for that 10-volume set at your local Woolworth and Sears stores. Don't fail to miss it. Okay, I lied. That's not the truth. It's only available on reel to reel, and the only place carrying it is Bob's Bread, Milk, and Weed Corner Store in Boise, Idaho. Act now before the store's rent is due and or the cops catch up to Bob. Cue the music. Bad Bob, what you gonna do? Where was I? Got it. But before I start, Kathy and I are not, as it may appear, gluttons for punishment because of the stories I tell. It's not only the pull of the river that keeps us going back, but we have family and friends in the area. The roots of growing up there far outweigh the trite, unappealing anecdotes I share in this column. The constant repairs really do exist. I spin them the way I do by hoping to exercise and oust them from my thoughts. Anything in the form of therapy, I'm willing to give it a try. I do that, however, at a great risk. Sometimes, by just retelling the troublesome woes we have at the river, it triggers an inane, nonstop diatribe of how they eat away at me. I can't, as they say, even come up for air. I'm unable to complete the column. Why? The onset of problems corrode the very core of my existence by disabling any chance of having a normal camp life because of how they keep pounding on my psyche like a relentless jackhammer, with me having little ability to stop or even slow down, as though I'm a snowball rolling down a hill gaining momentum towards a stone wall, or a stalled airplane in a free fall to hell, completely out of control with little, if any, ability to just shut up, stop, and move on from the constant situations of leaky faucets, broken pipes, electrical failures, water pump mishaps. They are so damn annoying that I'm actually considered renting billboards along the I-90 from Albany to the Pennsylvania state line, screaming out loud about the frustrations these hardships put me through. That's right, a nonstop line of obnoxious ads on 14 by 48 foot signs just to see if that would help me by sharing and effect diluting the disgruntlement, the ever-present turmoil stewing inside me. Got it? Cool. Gee, it looks like I'm out of room. Oops, sorry. Anyhow, let's try again next week. In the meantime, guess I gotta work on that too. Anyhow, that's the way it looks from the valley. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Turning to the Union-Sun Journal for Saturday and Sunday, August 1st through 2nd. From the front page, Vietnam-era play I Carry Your Heart With Me takes the stage. Week-long run starts today at Taylor Theater at the Keenan Center by Heidi Truzel-Light. This weekend and next, Lockport audiences can step into a gripping piece of hidden history when the Keenan Center's Taylor Theater presents I Carry Your Heart With Me, a one-woman mystery by playwright Jennifer Blackmer. Set during the Vietnam War, the play follows Esther Shannon, a government stenographer who finds herself pulled into a dangerous investigation. Suspenseful and emotionally resonant, the production shines a light on the experience of women who've served far from the front lines but were no less shaped by the war. The production is staged in conjunction with the Lockport Public Arts Council's I Was There, Unknown Stories of Vietnam, an interactive gallery exhibit spotlighting local Vietnam veterans and the often overlooked contributions of women during the war effort. Both the play and exhibit offer Niagara County audiences a picture of a defining era in American history, rooted in stories from their own community. Like so many things in the Taylor Theater, it's intensely intimate, it's intensely personal, said director Kevin Leary. You can't help but leave feeling impacted by this very powerful story. Leary said the pairing reflects the Keenan Center's mission to serve as a gathering place where people can learn, create, and better understand the world around them. I Carry Your Heart With Me runs through Saturday, August 9th at the Keenan Center's Taylor Theater with performances Saturday at 2:30 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. and Sundays at 2:30 p.m. Tickets and full production details are available at KeenanCenter.org/theater. The exhibit, I Was There, Unknown Stories of Vietnam, tells the story of the war through immersive displays, personal artifacts, photographs, and the voices of local veterans and their families. Visitors can see the exhibit Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Saturday and Sunday, 2 to 4 p.m. Wednesday offers veterans-only viewing from 1 to 2 p.m. Continuing with the front page of the August 1st through 2nd Union-Sun Journal, EPA soil testing cleanup raising concern. Residents near 18 Mile Creek Superfund site press EPA for answers, by Heidi Truzel-Light. Life in the picturesque stone cottage at 190 North Adams Street has been complicated by the Environmental Protection Agency's EPA soil testing findings for the neighborhood in the 18 Mile Creek Superfund site. Owner Mark Kuzakria was among several residents seeking answers this week on how the EPA makes and interprets soil test results and what consenting to testing will mean for their property. Standing in front of his 1800s-era home, Kuzakria pointed to his neighbors whose soil test results were above the acceptable limit for lead and would be receiving soil remediation. Kuzagria said his property tested just below the limit and was told he could not be part of the cleanup. I'm in the eye of the storm, he said of his property. 18 Mile Creek is undergoing cleanup for contamination with PCBs and heavy metals, including lead, dumped by the former Flint Coat Company in Lockport's Lower Town. Kuzagria said he believes there was an error in the soil testing process for his home and attended Wednesday's EPA public availability session at Lockport Town Hall to ask about options. Leaving the meeting, Kuzakria said, "They're pretty much telling me I don't have a right to be retested." Now retired, Kuzakria said he would like the option to relocate, but worries that without soil remediation, his house will be unsellable. Property owners are required to disclose the presence of lead during real estate transactions. "How am I going to sell the house with people knowing there's lead?" he said. Clinton Street resident Pat Myers said she has concerns about properties that aren't being remediated. The EPA requires homeowners to consent to soil replacement and other remediation work, and not all residents have agreed to it. What about the houses that aren't getting done between the houses that are cleaned up, Myers said. Is that going to seep into the clean ones? There's so much cancer around. I worry about my dogs and grandchildren. Cliff Holmes, who with his sons owns 3 residences at the intersection of Center and Mill Streets, is concerned about health risks to his grandchildren. Holmes attended the EPA session to ask that the soil be tested for the 3 properties. Leaving the meeting, Holmes said Kelly Gaffney of the EPA told him their addresses were not in the designated testing area and were unlikely to ever be tested. "We are right on the bend of the creek," Holmes said. The family is willing to pay for their own tests, but Holmes said it was like pulling teeth to find out from the EPA what lab the agency used so that his own test results could be comparable. Pete Menino, supervisor for the EPA's Western New York Remediation Section, disputed that an agency representative would dismiss the possibility of testing. Menino said the EPA is addressing contamination in an ever-widening crescent from the creek side. "The data is going to drive us," he said, with one finding leading to testing another nearby property. Homeowners undecided about testing were looking to understand the possible chain of events that would foul findings of contaminants in the soil. Town of Lockport resident Ann Fonzie said she had not yet given consent to test and said she was concerned that a soil remediation would be considered a property improvement and would lead to a higher tax assessment. Fonzie said she had asked for the taxes at her Purdy Road property to be lowered due to inclusion in the Superfund site, but was told by an assessor that it didn't lower property values because homes along the creek were still selling. Fonzie said she was also concerned about heavy construction equipment remaining parked on her property overnight as work was performed in her neighborhood. For Newfane, Supervisor John Syracuse said, "I hope that it's contained to the creek bed and not into people's yards." Menino said in Newfane, "The reason we need to take action is that the fish have unacceptable levels of PCBs in them." Continuing with the August 1st through 2nd Union-Sun Journal from the front page, Hoofing It at the Fair. Goats will be in the spotlight at next week's Niagara County Fair by Heidi Truzel-Light. On Wednesday, goats will be showing their adoring fans who is the greatest farm animal of all time at the Niagara County Fair. Turns out goats don't just give up the most scrumptious cheese, they're hoofing it on hiking trails, carrying essential supplies. Helen Rollins, 4-H working goat leader, said goats will be put through their paces in competition classes for showmanship, obstacles, agility, and goat carts. Goat Knowledge Olympics will start at 10:30 a.m. Wednesday with a meat goat show from 3 to 5 p.m. The Working Goat Pack Lines competitions will take place Saturday, August 8th at noon, featuring more than one goat tied in a row to carry supplies for the handler. The goats do an agility course like dogs, Rollins said. Elizabeth Mix, who will participate in the 4-H fair, said she finds working with goats lets her leave the cares of her day behind. Rollins said her 4-Hers learn livestock skills like hoof trimming, giving shots, haltering, tying knots, and showmanship, and hiking skills, like map use, trail etiquette, and what to pack for survival. A working goat's pack can include a first aid kit, emergency blanket, water, snacks, sunscreen, a compass, signal mirror, and twine, she said. As part of the 4-H program, youth with working goats keep a healthy goat checklist, maintain health treatment records, document expenses, hikes, and progress towards goals. The Working Goat Club has taken hikes at Lytle Nature Preserve and Bond Lake Park, Rollins said. The Niagara County Fair will feature a dairy goat show Saturday, August 8th and 9th. Saturday, August 8th from 9 to 11:30 a.m. Turning to the opinions page of the August 1st and 2nd Union-Sun Journal, the Our View column, "Success of agriculture means success for all." For millennia, long before Europeans arrived on the land that became the United States, agriculture has been a common thread among all peoples and places. Native Americans helped ensure the survival of pilgrims at Plymouth Rock in the early 17th century. Estimates are that as many as 10% of Americans can trace their ancestry back to those first farmers who came here on the Mayflower. Today, farming, from dairy to livestock to row crops such as corn and wheat, looks dramatically different than just a few generations ago. Family farms are being gobbled up, some by corporations, some for solar arrays and data centers, some by ever-growing cities. Yet some still survive, even thrive. The challenges are many: climate extremes, shrinking margins, evolving regulations, rising costs, and even geopolitical issues half a world away. The impact of agriculture in the United States is immense. Whether it's livestock in Texas and Oklahoma, corn and wheat in Indiana or Iowa, or dairy in Pennsylvania and New York, communities rely on American farmers and vice versa. You can see it everywhere on signs that are common in the Midwest. The average U.S. farmer feeds 182 people and you. The importance of farms cannot be overstated. The U.S. Department of Agriculture estimates that agriculture, food, and related industries inject $10.4 trillion into the nation's economic output each year, about 20% of all economic activity. While 49 million jobs are linked to agriculture, just 2% of those positions are on farms. U.S. consumer expenditures on food amount to 12.9% of household budgets, and the industry generates $1.3 trillion in tax revenue for local, state, and U.S. economies. But as Farm Aid, the nonprofit organization whose mission is to build a vibrant, family-centered system of agriculture in America, notes, farmers have been hit from every direction: seesawing tariffs, damaging trade policies, inflation, and drastic cuts to federal farm programs. These impacts, combined with decades of agriculture policy that favors large-scale industrial operations and corporations, are bringing many farmers and the rural communities they support to a breaking point. The most recent federal data shows that in 2025, there were 1.86 million farms, down from 1.88 million in 2024 and 1.99 million in 2020. CNHI's 5-part series on the state of American farms pivots on a simple question: can the family farms still survive? I think so. I've seen family farms continue to evolve over the last 50 years, Barry Ward, a professor at Ohio State College of Food, Agriculture, Rural, and Environmental Sciences, said. I grew up on a grain farm. Farms these days seem to be a little more specialized. This continues to evolve, but I think family farms are still important. Agriculture sustains many communities across the nation. Its success and future are paramount to the success and future of the nation. You've been listening to articles and features from current issues of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal. We read from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal every Saturday at 5 p.m. Your reader has been Patricia. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the Jamestown Post-Journal. At 7 o'clock, we got the Niagara Falls Review. And at 8 o'clock, we have the Off Duty from the Wall Street Journal. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Radio readers broadcast daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability who are provided reading radios. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio reading broadcasts throughout the city of Buffalo, Western New York, and Southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call us at 716-821-5555. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which